What if I told you that the biggest, most powerful tractors ever built, machines that could pull a small neighborhood, one of them never actually made it to market? It was killed not by farmers rejecting it, but by economics, scale, and timing that never lined up. 5 machines, 5 legends, and at least one ambitious project that never became a commercial success. This ranking is not based purely on size. It's based on engineering significance, influence, and the stories behind these machines. This is the story of what happens when engineers push past the limit and what the American farmer actually chose to keep. Size in agriculture is not vanity. Size is money. When you are farming 10,000 acres in Kansas or Nebraska, you are not choosing a tractor. You are choosing a financial strategy. Every hour saved in the field is fuel saved, labor saved, yield protected. The machines on this list were built to dominate that math. Some weighed over 60,000 pounds. Some produced over 600 horsepower. Some could cover more ground in a single day than an entire fleet of smaller machines working together. But here is the brutal truth about the farm equipment business. Bigger does not always survive. Farmers are not impressed by engineering trophies. They want reliability. They want resale value. They want a machine that starts at 5 in the morning in a Nebraska winter and keeps running through a 14-hour harvest day. Let's find out who delivered and who never got the chance. Number 5. Big Bud 747. There is only one. There will never be another. The Big Bud 747 was built in 1977 by Northern Manufacturing in Havre, Montana. It was commissioned by a farming operation in California that needed something no manufacturer on earth was selling, so they built it from scratch, by hand, outside the normal product line of any major brand. 900 horsepower from a Detroit diesel 16-cylinder engine. A fuel tank capacity of over 1,100 gallons. Total weight, approximately 100,000 pounds. The tires alone stand over 8 feet tall and weigh approximately 2,500 pounds each. Climbing into the cab requires a steel staircase, not a simple step-up like a conventional tractor. For 15 years, this machine worked fields in California, pulling implements wide enough to till entire sections of land in a fraction of the passes a normal tractor would need. Then it was sold, stored, and eventually acquired by the Williams brothers of Montana, who helped preserve and maintain the machine, with later appearances alongside the Welker family, introducing it to a new generation of farmers. Today it still works, still pulls, still burns fuel at a rate that would make any accountant physically ill. Reported fuel consumption at full load can exceed 100 gallons per hour. At current diesel prices in the American Midwest, that is roughly $400 or more every 60 minutes of work, a number that explains exactly why nobody else ever built a second one. Here is what separates the Big Bud from everything else on this list. It never failed. It was never discontinued. There was simply never a second one. It was a singular commission, a one-time engineering statement, and it has outlasted entire tractor brands that came and went in the decades since. It is not for sale. It is not in production. It is history that still runs. Number 4. Case IH Steiger Series. Case IH built the Steiger brand into one of the most respected names in articulated four-wheel drive tractors in North American agriculture. The current flagship, the Steiger 715 Quadtrac, produces over 700 horsepower and rides on 4 independent track units instead of wheels, giving it traction and flotation that earlier Steiger models couldn't match. This machine runs on the AFS Connect Precision Agriculture platform. Satellite guidance with sub-inch accuracy, predictive path planning that adjusts the tractor's route in real time based on field conditions, remote diagnostics that let a dealer monitor engine performance and catch a developing problem before it becomes a breakdown in the middle of planting season. The operating cost reality is significant. Fuel consumption under heavy draft load is commonly reported in the range of 15 to 25 gallons per hour, depending on soil conditions, ballast, and the implement being pulled. Over a typical growing season, factoring in spring tillage, planting support, and fall harvest preparation, annual fuel costs for a machine like this can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for a large operation running multiple units. This machine's value proposition is proven over decades. Resale on well-maintained Steiger Quadtrac units holds reasonably strong across the American dealer network. Parts availability stretches from the Texas Panhandle to the Dakotas without drama. which matters enormously when a hydraulic line fails during a narrow planting window. The Steiger did not fail. It evolved. It absorbed the original independent Steiger brand, which began in the 1950s in North Dakota, and turned it into the industrial workhorse that farms tens of millions of acres every year across the United States. Case IH won because they understood something simple. American farmers do not want the flashiest machine on the lot. They want the one that shows up every single morning, in every kind of weather, for 15 years straight. Number 3. John Deere 9RX Series. John Deere's answer to the limits of wheeled tractors was not to make bigger tires. It was to eliminate tires entirely on their largest machines. The 9RX series runs 4 independent track units, each one capable of articulating individually, giving the machine an extraordinary ability to maintain ground contact across rough, wet, or uneven terrain that would leave a wheeled tractor spinning or stuck. This is not a cosmetic feature. It is an agronomic argument worth real money on large operations. Soil compaction costs American corn and soybean farmers significant money annually in yield loss. Every additional pound of pressure per square inch that a tractor drives into the soil is a yield penalty paid at harvest, season after season, on the same ground. The 4-track configuration of the 9RX distributes its operating weight over a contact patch, dramatically larger than any equivalent wheeled tractor, which is the entire engineering justification for the design. A fully configured 9RX with precision guidance packages, ballasting and integrated technology represents one of the largest capital investments a farming operation can make in a single machine, well into 6 figures before factoring in implements, trade-in value or financing costs. The Command View cab is built more like an office than a traditional tractor cab. Leather, seating, dual armrest control interface, a touchscreen running John Deere Operations Center integration that syncs field data, yield maps, and machine performance back to the farm's central records. Autonomous pass-to-pass guidance with high-precision accuracy lets a single operator cover more acres per day with less fatigue and fewer overlap passes, wasting fuel and seed. Few competitors can match Deere's combination of technology, dealer support, and precision farming integration at this scale. A major reason the 9RX has become the benchmark machine that large row crop operations across the Midwest measure every other tracked tractor against. Number 2. Fendt 1167 Vario MT. If you thought Fendt was just a premium brand for medium-sized European farms, the 1167 Vario MT is here to correct that assumption. This is the largest and most powerful production track tractor Fendt has ever manufactured, combining the ground pressure advantages of a tracked system with transport speed that steel track machines historically struggled to match. It carries decades of Fendt engineering, much of it developed in Marktoberdorf, Germany, into a single chassis built for the biggest operations in the world. The Vario transmission, the continuously variable system that defines the Fendt identity, has no gear steps at all. The machine transitions from a slow field crawl to full transport speed in one smooth, infinitely adjustable power curve. On a machine pulling a wide implement through heavy soil, that smooth power delivery translates directly into fuel savings and reduced mechanical stress on the implement compared to a conventional fixed-ratio transmission shifting through gear steps. A fully configured Fendt 1167 Vario MT in the American market sits among the most expensive production tractors available anywhere in the world. For an operation that can justify the investment, the technology argument is strong. Documented fuel efficiency, gains, reduced operator fatigue over long field days, and strong resale value among the operators who run the brand. But Fendt faces an infrastructure reality in American agriculture that has limited its market penetration compared to the giants. The AGCO dealer network in the United States has grown substantially, but parts availability can sometimes be slower than the larger Deere and Case IH networks, particularly for specialized components that aren't commonly stocked. That gap between engineering excellence and field-level support is the one battle Fendt has not fully closed in America, despite building one of the most impressive machines on this entire list. Number 1. The giant that never reached production, Big Roy. In 1977, Canadian manufacturer Versatile built something the world had never quite seen, Big Roy. 600 horsepower, from a single Cummins 6-cylinder 19-litre engine mounted in the rear of the machine, 8-wheel drive, a total operating weight that made this one of the largest agricultural tractors ever constructed anywhere by any manufacturer. Here is what made Big Roy genuinely unique, and it is also the detail that created its biggest engineering challenge. The cab sat at the very front of the machine, positioned far ahead of the massive rear-mounted engine and the implement attachment points behind it. This created a real visibility problem. The operator, seated all the way at the front, could not easily see what was happening behind the tractor, where the actual work was taking place. Versatile's engineering team addressed this with a solution that was remarkably forward-thinking for 1977. They installed a closed-circuit television system, a camera mounted at the rear of the tractor, feeding a live image to a small monitor built into the operator's dashboard. It was one of the earliest known agricultural tractors to use a rear-view camera system, decades before that same basic technology became standard equipment on consumer vehicles. It was a genuinely creative engineering solution to a real problem. But clever engineering was not enough to carry the project into commercial production. Many experts believe its enormous size and limited commercial practicality made widespread adoption unlikely. The scale of the machine, the complexity of operating something this large, and the narrow number of farming operations anywhere in North America large enough to justify owning one all worked against it from the start. And then the broader farm economy shifted against it entirely. The late 1970s and early 1980s brought falling commodity prices, rising interest rates, and tightening credit across North American agriculture, a climate that made it dramatically harder to justify investment in an experimental 8-wheel drive machine, no matter how innovative its engineering. Versatile built exactly one Big Roy. It ran as a working prototype, demonstrated what 600 horsepower and 8-wheel drive looked like in real field conditions, and demonstrated the practicality of a rear camera system in large agricultural equipment. But it never entered commercial production, and no second unit was ever built. Today, Big Roy sits in the Manitoba Agricultural Museum in Austin, Manitoba, the only one ever built. A machine that pushed engineering further than the market of its era was ready to follow. Outro 5 machines, 4 that found their place in American farming and are still working fields today in one form or another, one that pushed technology and scale further than the market could support at the time. The biggest engineering swing on this list sits quietly in a museum in Manitoba, never replicated. The oldest machine still actively working is 50 years old and burns fuel by the hundreds of dollars per hour, and the most advanced machines in production today represent some of the largest single equipment investments. A farming operation can make technology packages included, so here is the question for every serious farmer watching this. Power, technology, or dealer support? When you are writing a check with 6 figures on it, which one matters most to you? Drop your answer below and tell us which machine on this list surprised you the most.